What a Strange Little Colt. Written by Linwood. Chapter 14. The Second Choice, Part 1. Monday afternoon. Every part of Luna hurt. Every bone and bit of flesh cried out in pain. It was a special pain. Just lying on her side felt like Luna had worked every muscle in her body to the point of complete exhaustion, and like she hadn't eaten in months. Her throat was a desert. Her brain ached in her skull. It hurt to move, so she didn't. It hurt to see, so she kept her eyes shut. It hurt to breathe, so she wheezed.
It hurts.
It felt as if she was falling apart. Her ear off the floor twitched, shouting. It was muffled, but it sounded like it was right outside her door.
Is that Sally's voice?
Luna's curiosity barely surfaced before she was dragged back into her ocean of agony. She focused on her breaths, just as she had been for countless hours. In, out. In, out. She missed being able to move, to walk, to eat and drink, but it was hard to remember. It was hard to even think. How had this happened? Headaches at first, then short breath, and then, who knew how many days ago? Dropping to the floor, unable to get back up, being rushed to her quarters, her sister standing over her looking worried, looking scared. She never looked scared. The shouting sharply grew louder for a moment, then disappeared just as quickly. Clunk went the lock on her door. Somebody was in her room. Sally? She needed more water, and desperately. She opened her mouth to ask, but only a dry whisper came out. A voice, unmuffled, clear as day, high but distinctly male. Not Sally. Somebody else was in her room. The Princess of the Night struggled to open her eyes as she spoke. She couldn't quite put together his words, but he sounded sad and tired, exhausted even. The shouting on the other side of the door grew and grew. In, out. A swimming pool of white and black streaked blue filled her vision. The colors were faint and drained. She huffed as she blinked, forcing her bedroom into a blurry mimicry of focus. There, by the door, a tiny dark blob. She blinked some more, and slowly, painfully slowly, the blob turned into a pony that she had long thought dead and gone. The foal turned away from her bedroom door and looked her in the eye. Her heart soared in her burning chest as his image grew larger.
It is him. Really him. The spell worked. I did it. Oh. He is sad. Why is he sad? Don't be sad.
She mustered all her energy in her tortured body and shifted her foreleg, doing her best to ignore the seething pain as she reached towards him. She rasped.
Nighttime breeze.
The burning in her chest spread to her foreleg as he drew nearer and nearer, and then finally sat at her bedside. Why was he looking at her like that? Was he green? What was happening? Luna's ear twitched again as her brain finally registered the periodic thumping coming from the door.
I'm sorry, Luna,
he finally said with a slow, soft voice.
I'm not who you think I am. I'm not your friend.
Luna's heart crashed down, and her foreleg fell onto the bedsheets like a deep blue noodle.
What?
She managed.
I think your spell was supposed to get someone else, but instead it grabbed me. I don't know why.
The room grew a little more blurry, but she could only wheeze.
You fucked up. You failed. I'm sorry.
Her head spun even more, and no amount of blinking could steady it. The Colt before her took a deep breath.
My name's Gabriel,
he said, saving her the pain of asking the question herself.
And I come from a different world.
Luna's ear twitched.
Not of this world.
She kept her eyes locked on his as best as she could while he spoke.
My home is, very different from here. My people are the only ones who live there. And, well, we,
He trailed off, still staring at her. Then he sighed, letting his rear fall onto the floor and looking at the stone block wall. He didn't speak for a long, stretching moment. In and out.
You know, my sister would have loved it here.
His voice sounded gravelly and hollow, and his eyes narrowed.
She was the one that made me sit down and watch your guys' old show. It's her fault I ever became a fan at all. Sister... show?
Luna's addled mind couldn't make sense of it. The burning tore at the edges of her consciousness, pushing, no, pulling her towards him. Not that she could move or do anything about it, though.
We'd watch you guys for hours, after school, every day. We'd get home and turn off the scary news, and we'd watch you all in your little colorful world and just wish that we could have been there in the screen with you. It was insane how much we wanted that. We must have gotten our hands on every one of those comics too, and we'd read them until the battery died.
He swallowed and looked at her with a soft gaze.
You were always my favorite, though.
Luna's eyes widened and her breath hitched in her throat. He chuckled.
Surprising. Rachel thought so too. We'd constantly argue over who was the best pony. She loved Fluttershy. Couldn't even understand why I wouldn't pick one of the 6.
Most of what he said behaved like a wrench in her cognitive gears. But Luna didn't care. She was his favorite pony. Did he prefer her over every pony else? Even over Celestia?
I think it was because I was such a night owl.
He continued, his gaze drifting away.
I love the quiet nighttime, the peaceful dark. I love stargazing, back when you could still see him. And I remember all that time watching under the covers. No arguing, no broadcast, just me and all of you.
Gabriel looked back at her with a smile as she scrabbled to gain purchase among so much information she didn't understand.
I especially loved it when you showed up, though. You were so honest, and regal, and funny, and real. Not like Celestia at all.
He leaned in and his smile turned to a conspiratory grin.
Just between you and me, she always seemed a little too stuck up and stuffy,
he said with a wink. Luna's world promptly turned upside down. A pony. A real pony who preferred her over Celestia? And loved her knight? It had been so long. Why did no pony seem to love her knight as she did? Why did no pony seem to love her instead of her sister? But wait, this Colt did. It jammed her brain like a stone thrown into gears.
I do not understand. How? Why? You weren't in very many episodes, but those were my favorite. I watched them over and over, even after we grew up. God, I must have watched that Halloween one a million times. Every time I'd see you mess up or do something wrong or be sad or alienated or alone, fuck, I just wanted to hold your hoof and say, hey, it's okay, you're not alone, you've got me.
He looked at the floor, so he didn't see Luna struggle to reach out her hoof.
It was terrible how alone I was after she left.
He smiled at her again, but it wasn't a happy smile. It spoke volumes of unspeakable sadness. She wheezed.
Funny thing is, those were the good times. Before everything just came apart at the seams. When people still had food on the table and drove their cars whenever they wanted and didn't own blackout curtains or any shit like that.
He swallowed and his voice became hard.
I didn't even get to finish college. My folks worked so hard to keep me in school while they were around. Rachel gave me her fucking savings and enlisted so I could go. And I didn't even get to fucking graduate. Those jets just showed up and the world just fell apart. Just like that. No more classes. No more school. God.
The Colt's head dipped and his words got quiet. He rubbed his eyes with a fetlock.
And that's how it was. I lost everything.
The Colt's words hung in the air for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice became hollow and bitter.
We had to hold on anyway, of course. Going from place to place, watching things get worse and worse. Fighting a hopeless war because we had no other choice. Hell, Luna, I wasn't even a real fucking soldier. I didn't have tags or an actual uniform or anything. Just a scared kid with a fucking gun.
He sniffled and the door made a rattling, creaking sound.
That is not supposed to make that kind of noise.
Luna managed to think.
I know you don't understand. I think I just wanted to tell someone before
The Colt swung his head to look towards the entrance, went back to her.
Shit. I'm rambling. What matters is that I'm running out of time.
He huffed a little.
Those people out there, they do mean the best, but the decision is up to me. I'm not gonna let this be on anyone else.
The Colt glanced backward.
I know this is all your fault, and there's some awfully upset ponies outside that door. But I can't really be mad at you. How could I be? You're the one who brought me here, to fucking Equestria. I got to see it with my own damn eyes.
He looked into her eyes and Luna saw real fear.
I want this so bad, Luna. I want to live here. It's practically paradise. But there's always a price, isn't there?
The Colt made a sad chuckle.
God knows I don't belong in a place like this. But I'm gonna make it right. I'm gonna fix it.
He swallowed.
You guys will work it out somehow. You'll get your happy ending. I know it.
His upper lip trembled, and Luna's heart ached even though she didn't understand him. She wanted very badly to be able to sit up and hug the strange foal, to tell him that it was okay, but it was so hard to move, and she was so tired. No.
No.
The Princess of the Night grit her teeth and poured all of her energy into her chest, taking in as much air as she could manage.
Will be okay.
The Colt tried his best to smile.
Yeah. It'll be okay.
The door trembled in its stone frame. Something made a tortured metal groan noise as he wiped his muzzle.
I got to come here, make friends, see the stars again. It was good. I'm thankful.
He held out a trembling hoof out to her.
No sense in putting it off anymore, I guess.
The bedridden princess' confused gaze dropped to his outstretched limb.
He wants me to touch his hoof.
He nodded at it.
This'll make everything better. I promise.
The door shuddered, and Luna heard the slight splintering of wood. He looked back over his shoulder, then at her, shutting her eyes for a moment.
Don't let go.
okay? I'm scared. Luna looked back up to the Colt for a moment and nodded, her eyes wide. Then she summoned the last of her strength and limply raised her foreleg off the bed, wheezing as she pushed it towards him. It felt as if it took ages, and the closer she drew, the more her hoof burned like it was in the dragon's forge. But she did it. In? The Colt hesitated for the barest of moments before taking her hoof into his in one quick swoop. The world exploded. White-hot fire surged into her foreleg and raced up it with the power of a lake bursting through a dam. It filled her entire being, washing away the agony. She sucked in her first painless breath as the room snapped into crystalline focus and all her limbs extended at once. The princess nearly cried out as the fog that had seeped into her mind and muddled even the tiniest thought instantly dissipated. In that one miraculous moment, it all became clear. The spell failed. Luna had selected a different consciousness by accident and yanked it from who knew how far to seal away and give it a new form. She didn't know why it had picked Gabriel though, and she doubted she ever would. Luna had collapsed before she and Celestia had tracked her errant piece of soul down, but her sister must have found him and brought him here. Confusion washed over her as she wondered just what kind of interloper she created, but it was thrust out by wonder not a moment later. That interloper had given himself up for her. He had sacrificed himself. Why? What made him do that? Who was Gabriel? The conversation rushed through her head. A non-pony from a different place. No, a different world. A being who knew of them somehow and had enjoyed their presence. And he had said that she was his favorite. A lover of the night. A being from another world. The mystery. The intrigue. Eager excitement surged through her as the possibility before her, and the possibility of finally having somebody who had reached out to her. His hoof began to slip from her grasp. Luna snapped back into the present. She clasped her hoof around his right away, locking his limb fetlock with hers, and thrust herself out of the bed that had been her prison just seconds ago. They slumped to the floor together, and Luna swept her other foreleg around his head, keeping it off the floor. His eyes were wide when they met hers.
Such a deep brown. Ah.
He whispered in a frail, near-silent voice.
It's different this time.
Then he closed his eyes. They stayed still beneath their lids. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. Luna stared, open-mouthed, shell-shocked.
Sister!
She gasped and lit her horn. Her bedroom door's deadbolt slid away with a simple flick of magic, and she yanked them open, revealing a menagerie of unexpected and extremely concerned-looking ponies, plus one baby dragon. Celestia stood tall behind them, and the two locked widened eyes.
Gabe!
Cried the mare in front. Rainbow Dash, an element of harmony.
What is she doing here?
Luna thought, feeling foggy and lost. She burst forward, nearly tumbling to the Colt's side.
No. Don't do this. Don't do this.
She ignored the princess and took Gabriel's head in her forelegs.
Kid, come on. Wake up. Wake up.
Celestia moved next, taking careful strides towards Luna. She stopped and looked down at Gabriel in silence. Luna felt as if she had been struck in the head. She struggled to form coherent thoughts.
If he were blue instead of green, he'd be just like nighttime. A shame.
Celestia whispered. The princess licked her lips.
Sister, what has happened? Did he... Kid, come on. I know you're in there, just wake up. Damn it. Don't do this to me.
Her sister swallowed.
Yes, I believe he did.
Luna looked down at the little green form she held. It meant a great deal to Rainbow Dash, but now it was empty. Dead. But just moments ago it had spoken with such heart and soul. How could that be? How could that be right? It wasn't, but she understood why.
Without that part of my soul, I would have surely perished. He gave himself up for me. He died for me.
She had brought him here. That had been her choice, her desperate, utterly moronic attempt to drag companionship from the dregs of the past. And where had it gotten her? A foal's corpse in her grasp, a sobbing mare holding him, and a being torn from this world and made to die for no good reason at all. Loss. Plain and simple.
All because of me and that accursed magic. What possessed me to believe that I could do the impossible?
She had been so sure. She wished for weeks on end, pushing off sleep and staying up well into the days to make sure she got everything right. She'd set everything up perfectly. She'd been so sure she'd get him back, and the only one who'd ever really and truly understood. And then she wouldn't be so heart-crushingly alone. All she had to do is convince herself that she could do the impossible. The absolute suffocating absurdity of the situation began to seep into Luna's awareness. 1,000 years ago, when soul magic was not so unknown, she had led entire platoons of armored guards to put down interlopers. She knew what they looked like when they cast off their pony forms. Watching a storm of whipping tendrils and long, jagged teeth emerge from a form so familiar left something of a lasting impression. Yet here had been an interloper unlike any Luna, or likely any pony had ever known. Familiar ponies and strangers alike had gathered in this room. Twilight Sparkle, Celestia's student, seemed at the edge of breaking down, and a nameless Pegasus mare hesitated some distance away, one hoof over her mouth and tears soaking into her muzzle. What had this interloper done to deserve such a mourning from so many ponies? How had he earned the fierce loyalty of the element of harmony? Even now, both regents of Equestria attended his death in respectful silence.
Celestia is right.
Gabriel?
Rainbow moaned, clutching the little green form close and rocking back and forth.
Gabriel. Gabriel. Gabriel.
Such sorrow.
And it's all my fault. Again.
A familiar, painfully cold feeling settled in her chest, squeezing her heart and pulling her down.
It's all my fault again. Just like the nightmare. Someone is dead because of me.
She blinked as she looked down at the Pegasus mare holding the still, warm foal close. She looked up at her sister, who looked downright lost, an emotion she had not seen on that face for a very long time. As she looked at every pony in the room, each watching the unfolding scene with looks of guilt and regret, something sparked in her.
I have done a terrible thing.
Luna thought, her mind racing.
But perhaps there is a way to make this right.
She lit her horn, reaching out into the quarters and grasping the bottom right drawer of her desk. It slid free with practiced ease and drifted through the open doorway over her, where it slowed to a stationary hover. Then, Luna spoke.
Move.
The Pegasus mare sniffled and wiped at her eyes. When they found hers, they narrowed.
You...
she said in a shaky but dangerously sharp voice.
This is your fault. Step away, Rainbow Dash.
Luna said as she stood on 3 legs, lifting Gabriel's form in her magic.
I will not ask you again.
Her face twisted up into something near rage, but when she locked her eyes with Luna's, something gave, and anger disappeared. Without it, the Pegasus looked limp, frail, drained of every drop of pep and energy. She stood and backed away, still looking at the foal, and she didn't move when a tan mare walked to her and set a wing across her withers.
Sister, what are you doing?
Said Celestia. Luna ignored her. She had a job to do and very little time to do it. A folded sheet of well-used parchment leapt from her drawer first, floating before Luna and unfolding itself. Then bits of pure white, faintly glowing chalk jumped up and danced in the air before dropping into her bedroom's smooth stone floor, where they whisked about in a flurry.
Quickly. Move as fast as you can.
Luna bit her lip in careful concentration, and bit by bit, a casting circle began to appear. Any pony beside her would likely be thrown off by its strange, off-balance structure and its many seemingly extraneous features, but Luna knew exactly what she was doing. After all, she had spent countless hours designing it. While most of the occupants of the room looked confused and sorrowful, Celestia had a deep frown on her face. Luna could feel the comment coming on.
3, 2, 1. Sister, stop. I cannot condone this. Think of the risk. Condone what you like.
Luna shot back immediately, her voice hard.
I am doing what I must.
It took a great deal of focus to draw so much of the circle so quickly, but she did not have the luxury of time.
I only hope it is not too late. I do not know how long this interloper's presence will endure.
Twilight Sparkle stepped forward, her eyes wide.
Princess Luna, is this? This is another soul magic circle. Yes, Twilight Sparkle,
she said as she frowned and used an enchanted cloth to wipe away some of the chalk, replacing it with an outwardly similar, but slightly more simple pattern of lines. To anybody else in the room, it would look like an arcane mess of symbols and sigils, but Luna knew each and every placement by heart. It had to be perfect, or it would only bring more pain.
No retrieval, no fabrication, no far reach. I pray I am not overlooking anything. Luna, really?
Celestia said, her voice far more insistent.
Consider your actions. I have.
Idle chatter did not occupy her current interests. Twilight looked to her mentor, her voice wavering.
Princess? What's she doing? She speaks as if I am not here.
Luna smothered a grimace as she put the finishing touches on her circle. The complex part was done. She needed only to maintain the simple powering spell.
A thing easier said than done,
she thought, remembering how poorly the first attempt had gone.
I believe she is attempting to revive him,
her sister responded.
What?
Rainbow said, her voice tinged with disbelieving hope.
You can do that? Sister,
Celestia said as Luna placed her supplies back in the drawer, her voice gaining a forceful edge.
This did not work before. You rent your soul in two. You're only putting yourself in danger. No,
Luna responded, fire in her chest. She stood in the middle of the circle and gently placed the foal's body in the middle, still holding on tight.
This time is different. Luna, it is!
Luna cried.
I am not summoning some pony who is really and truly gone. I am not preparing a vessel. I will split my soul properly.
She fixed her gaze on her sister and softened her voice.
Please, trust me. I will fix this wrongdoing.
Celestia's face wavered.
Luna, I can't. Not with this.
Luna swallowed and spoke, her voice sharp.
Then stand back.
She hesitated then, for just the barest of seconds, acknowledging what she was about to do.
There's always a price, isn't there?
The princess began to pour as much magic as she could manage into the circle. The chalk drank it up greedily, letting it flow across its lines and intersections, mixing it, transmuting it, and channeling it into a bright, flashing form. A glow enveloped the Colt's body, starting at the core and spreading up his legs and onto Luna.
Luna!
Celestia called. True alarm rang in her voice. The surprise at hearing her like that gave Luna the slightest pause.
I have not heard her like that since I returned. Stay away!
Luna shouted. A great heat sprang to life in her very core, and then, as the magic finally filled the innermost layer of the circle, a sharp, stabbing pain. She grunted and her legs nearly gave out, but she forced herself back up, muscling through it the best she could manage. Every part of her trembled.
Be careful. Only a small piece. Just what's needed. Just enough. Please don't fail.
Then, at the spell's most vulnerable moment, Celestia stepped into the circle.
No!
Luna cried, struggling to speak.
Celestia, don't!
But Celestia didn't break the circle or siphon the spell away. Instead, she placed her hoof on the full side. Her horn burst in the light. Luna felt some of the strain lift from her mind and the searing pain lessened. The Princess of the Night gaped like a fool for only a moment before she shook it off and took a deep breath.
Please don't fail. Please don't fail. Please don't fail.
It wasn't like last time. Instead of flickering and pulsing angrily, the circle maintained a healthy, steady glow. Across from her, Celestia's mane whipped like she stood against a hurricane. The circle, the Colt, and the three ponies continued to glow, brighter and brighter, until Luna's room was lit like Celestia's sun had appeared right in its middle. Then, all at once, without any fanfare, it disappeared. A small section of the circle went poof, and Luna felt her and her sister's magic flow out and back into the world. The air tasted of rust when she took a deep breath, resisted the urge to pant and gasp, and she blinked the spots from her eyes. Her mane settled down again, as did her sister's, and had some pony bothered to measure, they would have found that they hung just a little lower than they had before. No pony made a sound, but Luna's eyes met Celestia's. Her sister took a deep breath before she spoke.
Did it work?
The Colt gasped and coughed, nearly jerking his hoof free from her grip. Luna's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth just in time to see him get enveloped in a tackle hug. All but one limb disappeared into Rainbow Dash's forelegs in a flash, and the mare squeezed him for all he was worth. The mystery Pegasus followed her, though she stood a hoof length away. Her face shifted between joy and sorrow and disbelief as she stood there, still with the hoof over her mouth.
I can't believe it,
she said, sounding distant. Could it really? Said the black and white unicorn as he stood a little further away. Rainbow Dash finally loosened her grip, leaning back a little and tilting the Colt's head up.
Hey, kid,
she said.
Gabe? It's been a long time since I last heard a pony sound so terrified and overjoyed at the same time,
Luna thought. The little green foal groaned and scrunched his nuzzle. His eyes flickered open and he coughed.
Fuck. Ow.
He groaned.
Rainbow?
The Pegasus mare squealed and enveloped him in another crushing hug. He gurgled.
Rainbow!
She didn't let up for another moment or two, and when she finally did, she looked at him with red, puffy eyes.
Holy moly, Gabe. I can't believe you're okay.
The foal took a few gasping breaths, looking around the room, then at his leg. His eyes followed his limb up to where it met Luna's, and his eyes widened. He met her gaze, and Luna made a small, cautious smile.
Hello, Gabrielle.
Now that's as good as a cliffhanger as you're gonna get. Gosh, this chapter is long, but man, I actually started tearing up. I swear, every time I read this chapter, it's a kick to the throat, and I cannot tell you how difficult it is to do Rainbow's voice,
which requires a lot of throat control to actually do.
When it's closing up because you're crying. It is extremely difficult and very hard, but God, I love this chapter. Lynn Wood is such a great author, and if you are listening to this, thank you for making such a wonderful story. I've really enjoyed it so far. I can't wait to finish it, especially with the other half of this in the epilogue. There's still more to do, guys, so don't worry. I'll try to hopefully finish What a Strange Little Colt this week. I would really like that. However, what I also like is thanking my wonderful Patreons. Thank you my tier 1s, Redeemer of Dark, Jason, Lemaster, Lunar Gaze, Hyperling, 8 Dave Knight, Starlight Blaze, Night and Game, Dreamless Portal, and Balanced Kindness. My tier 2s, Captain Blueshadow, The Animated Ghost, Solus, HKH4, aka Texture, Sword Brother and Mordred, Nocturne, DJMX 2000, Papa Linen, Can Panzer, Elemental Wolf, and H1 Wolf King. And of course a large thank you to my Titan tiers, User 1842, Dark Guardian, Danish Dash, Maverick, and of course a large thank you to Silent Titan. I appreciate you guys' support so much, and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.